What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to install a cold air intake on your Mk6 Golf R. Okay, for this job you're going to need your Torx bits. Specifically, I believe we use the T25 and the T20 possibly. But it's good to just have a set of Torx bits, as Volkswagen uses Torx a lot. You're going to need your ratchet. Just a 1/4 inch ratchet for this job. You're going to need your pliers or hose clamps if you have them. It's nice to have a little extender for your ratchet extension, and I also have one of these rotating adapters so I can get at some of the Torx screws that are a little bit more challenging to access. And then you're also going to need your sockets for the hose clamps to put the CTS intake on. I believe they all use, I think they all use a 9 or 8 millimeter socket. So if you have those, otherwise, since they're just hose clamps, you can always use the SAE size as well, as long as they somewhat fit. You're not really torquing anything down. So the intake I went with was the one from CTS Turbo. I got it off of Eurotuning.com. I'll put a link in the description for where you can get one of these intakes for your own car. It's specifically made for the Mk6 Golf R with the FSI 2-liter turbocharged motor. It's a 3-inch intake pipe. It's got a big old filter. I can run through a little bit of what comes in the box from Eurotuning. Got the filter housing. Got some couplings and all the hose clamps. You got a heat shield. You got the turbo inlet pipe. You got the second heat shield right here. Got the second heat shield. Everything's nice and bubble wrapped, so it doesn't get banged up. Little rubber. What do you call these? Not sure what you call these, but basically they go around the end of the filter right here, so it keeps all the airflow going straight into the pipe. Yeah, here's what the main piping looks like. That goes from the turbo inlet pipe on this end right here. It does have these little holes right here, and I think what that's for is for the CTS Turbo does a big turbo kit that links up to these somehow, so we're just going to plug these off because we are pretty much stock. We got the Stage 1 tune from Integrated Engineering, but other than that, as far as performance mods go, pretty stock. So, but yeah, pipe looks pretty nice, and this one's kind of matte black. It's got some texture to it. Looks pretty nice. So yeah, basically the idea behind the intake and the reason you want one is you got the airflow coming in through here, and on our stock intake it's actually inside of the engine cover right here. So the airflow comes in here, goes through the air filter in the engine cover, and then goes into the turbo, which eventually goes into the cylinder head, combines with the gasoline, and makes kaboom. And so with more airflow, you can get more boost, which means more gasoline can go in there, just creating a bigger explosion. So that's kind of why you'd want to get one of these aftermarket intakes, especially if you're tuned. Can help with getting you a little bit more power out of your vehicle. So step one is getting this engine cover off here. I have done this a couple times just to get to the coils, and I did do a stock air filter change earlier, which I'll link a video to that above, as there's not much stuff on YouTube about how to change the stock air filter on a Golf R. So first thing you're going to want to do is just make sure you got everything disconnected. You got the mass airflow sensor up here that needs to come out. You got the whatever pipe this is, you got to unplug that. You got to unplug this diverter hose, and you have to take this stock little airbox off. So to get the mass airflow sensor off, you might need a little pick, or you can just use your fingers. But basically, you just pull this little tab here, you hear it click, and you pull it off. Next thing you want to do is you're going to want to take each of these little, there's 4 of these guys, clamping this piping on to the engine cover. Reach in there and get all those off. My mistake, there's only 2 of those. Okay, and then there's 2 little tabs connecting the diverter hose to the engine cover. You're going to kind of yank that off. And then that whole thing should be off, as you can see. So when it comes to taking this cover off, there's 4 little grommets that are underneath each corner that attach the engine cover. The engine cover can be a little tricky to get off with those grommets. If you can't get them off, what helps is to heat up the engine, drive your car a couple miles, come back, and once those grommets are warmed up, you can loosen them a little bit easier. So if you're having troubles getting the engine cover off, just take your car out for a 5-minute drive. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to yank this engine cover off. You should maybe take this off first. It doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna try to loosen it up. Just gonna give it a yank. All right. Got one here. All right. And we're off. So yeah, you do have to tug pretty hard. Don't worry about breaking this thing. It's just some shitty plastic, even if you do break it. Okay, the next thing you want to remove is you want to take this hose clamp and pull it down so you can take this air box out of here. I'm just using a regular old pliers. Just kind of grab it and make sure it's tight. Oh, fucking I hate this goddamn thing. I don't have a hose clamp or anything, but it would help if you get one. And you just pull this guy out of here. That. So now you should be able to just make sure you got the mass airflow sensor out of the way, the hose out of the way. This disconnected. You should just be able to pull it. All right, out of here. All right, and there's your motor. Okay, so the next thing to do is actually to take this whole airbox off. There's a couple screws. I think they're Torx bits. So once I find out what size they are and where they're located, I'll make sure I get that on camera. Also, there's a little top right here. There's a little clip on the side right there. You can just pull up, and this can come off. So the way you get this airbox off right here is there's 2 Torx bits. I believe they're T27, and they're actually in your grill right here. Looks like there's 2 of them. They're behind here. They might be kind of tricky to get the camera in, but I'll try to get an angle on those. So they're actually T25 Torx. Yeah, so you can just get a little extension on your 1/4" ratchet and get in there. I'll get the camera in there to show. Try my best here. Alright, so I got my my Torx on the end of this guy with a little extension on my 1/4" ratchet. I'm going to use my phone for some lighting. And it's way down in there. And just get it. Alright. Set that guy up there. Do the rest with my finger. It's just a plastic Torx bit, so it does not in there very far. There you go. Alright, she's out. There's one. And the other one is just on the other side of that box. Same thing on this side. I pulled that other screw out, and this thing just can be removed now. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you want to take this little diverter hose and you want to take it off the turbo inlet pipe. And then after that, you're just going to take the turbo inlet pipe out. Make sure you have something to cover the inlet pipe so that no dirt and anything gets in there. Yeah, so like a Ziploc bag will work or something like that. Alright, get in there with the pliers. You gotta be gentle with this one because you don't want that to break. Now I got this this hose clamp is off, but I've never taken this diverter hose out, so it's just kind of stuck onto the turbo inlet pipe. So I'm going to take this inlet pipe out before I try to get this diverter valve off of here. So, or diverter hose, excuse me. So the way you get the inlet pipe out is there's a little way back in there, little hose clamp. You got to squeeze. It might be kind of tricky, but we'll work with it. Careful of this. This little heat shield here, its edges is really sharp. I don't know if you can see that, but right here there's a heat shield, and I've cut myself on that before, so careful. Alright, so I'm going to set my phone, a little flashlight up here, and see if I can work my way down into this. It's proven pretty difficult to get this turbo inlet pipe out because the hose clamp's so far down, so I'm just going to take this out, just pull that trim out of there. And then, we really don't have that much room in here. Let's see. Just gotta kind of play with it as best you can. Alright, so it would definitely help to have a heat gun in this situation. I can't really seem to get this piping off of here. It's pretty stuck on there. If you heat up the rubber a little bit, it might loosen up. So yeah, if you have a heat gun, I'd go at that. I don't have one, so I just got to keep pulling on it and see where I can go from there. Alright, so after a lot of twisting and pulling, I finally got that off. Now I think I moved the clamp up enough to get this piping off of here, but it's just going to be more twisting and pulling off from down here where the turbo inlet is. So it's actually a lot easier to wiggle this guy around. Once you do that, you can kind of get a better angle at the hose clamp down here. Way the fuck down here. Alright, so after a bunch of wiggling, you can pull this guy out of there. Here's the hose clamp. It's kind of a pain to get at, but there it is at the bottom of this piping right here. So at this point, you have the, you can actually see the inlet to the turbo right here, and you're going to want to cover that up with something like a plastic bag or something. I'm actually just going to use the bag that comes with the CTS turbo, or with the CTS intake. I'm just going to take the stuff out and throw the bag over there so you don't get any dirt or anything inside your turbo. Keep in mind there is a rubber coupling on the inlet piping right here that's going to have to come off eventually, so you can just take it off now, because I believe we don't use it for the new turbo inlet pipe we're going to put on there. So it's right there, it's all greased up. Just take that sucker off. Now I got my bag. I'm going to put it over the pipe. So now nothing should get in there. One thing I forgot to mention is you're going to have to take the mass airflow sensor out of the stock airbox, out of the engine cover. It looks like it's maybe a Torx bit, like a T30 or something. Looks like it is a T20 Torx. Alright, don't want to lose these guys because I'm not sure if there's more in the intake kit or not. And pull that out, and then this guy just slides right out of here. There she is, looking all nice. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to plug off all the... You're going to want to plug off all these little holes on here. So there should be little plugs in the kit. Plug these off with, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, just so you know, if you do end up going with the CTS turbo intake, the bunghole fillers, the bolts and stuff to fill up those holes on the piping are in this, with the coupling and the downsizer thing. So it'll be right in this package. So the first little guy is gonna be this little black piece. Comes in the small Ziploc bag. There's actually two of these in the kit. Don't get it confused, because I got it confused. There's one of these that comes with a little O-ring that I actually slid on myself, but this one comes in the pack with the couplers and the hose clamps, and this fills one of the holes. So got this larger hole right here. Just twist that guy in there. I'm not gonna go crazy, just until it fits. Okay, then the way you fill these two holes is pretty interesting. They give you these little try not to drop it. These little guys. That'll focus. And these go right in here. You just twist them in, and then you can tighten them down with a Allen. It looks like probably a 5 key or something. So I'm just gonna set this down. I'm gonna grease these guys up a little bit just so they don't get stuck in there, in case I ever need to get them out, if I ever go big turbo or whatever. So Take a little white lithium grease. Get some on my finger. And just get the threads. Alright, don't go crazy. And then go ahead and screw it in there. Do the second one. Put her in there. Careful not to lose these because they only send you 2 of them. Alright, I'm gonna grab my Allen key. Set that guy in there. Don't go too crazy on that. Yeah, it should be good. You don't have. I don't think you have to get them totally flush in there, but see, I twisted those guys in there, and then you got the bigger end right here. I just hand tightened that with the pliers. Next thing you're gonna want to do is a bag of reducers, silicone reducers. This one, you're gonna get this one right here. So you got these 2 reducers, silicone guys. You're going to want to go ahead, you're going to get this longer one here. And that's going to go from the pipe to the inlet, turbo inlet pipe. Grab this guy. Get it on there. Make sure there's no dirt or anything in there. Alright, so it takes a little messing with. Get that on there. Okay, and then you're just going to loosely twist your hose clamps on. Okay, something to keep in mind here is that the kit comes with 4 hose clamps. 3 of them are the same size and 1 of them is smaller. Make sure you use the smaller hose clamp for this silicone reducer. Use it on the narrower part of the reducer that goes to the turbo inlet pipe. Because as you'll see later, I make the mistake of putting a bigger one on that end of the reducer, and it leads to problems further down the road. So make sure you're using the smaller hose clamp on the bottom of that reducer. Here we got one of the hose clamps on. Now keep in mind, this is going on to the turbo inlet, right? So you're going to want to angle this. The pipe is going this way. You're going to want to angle that hose clamp so that you can adjust it that way, because you have the most room back there if you're working at it from the right side. So when you tighten it on there, just keep that in mind. Alright, so I've got both of those hose clamps loosely on there on the reducer. Now I'm going to take the bag off the inlet pipe. I don't have to get any dirt in there. Set that aside and then wiggle this guy on, keeping in mind that you want these where you can access them. So looks like the best way is going to have them be out to the right side. So this in here. So it's definitely a little tricky to wiggle this guy on here. There's not a lot of room in here for this guy, but just kind of wiggle it in there. You have a little wiggle room to move it around later. And then you're just going to want to pull that hose clamp up to make sure it's really grabbing the inlet pipe, and then you're going to want to give it a good yank when you tighten it down. Oh, this is where it's going to be really helpful to have some of these guys, these universal joints for, this is for the, I got one for a 1/4, 3/8, and a 1/2 inch ratchet. This cost me about $6 at Walmart. It's really going to help out for this. So I feel like I got it pretty snug in there. I'm just going to tug on it, make sure she's not going anywhere. Feels pretty good. I'm going to install the MAF sensor back in. So this is not threaded to the old bolts for the MAF sensor, so it's got its own. Those come in a little tiny baggie in the same bag as the bag with the silicone reducer. They're actually not Torx, they are Allen key heads on them, so Allen heads on them. It is a little tricky to get in here. It might have been a better idea to do this before you actually get the hose clamps on the turbo inlet. Alright, so I snugged those up. That was definitely harder than it needed to be. Definitely put the sensor in before you do the clamps down here on the turbo inlet. Next part is to put together the heat shield. Here. Well, I'm just going to put the bolt in from the top and then the nut from the bottom. Okay, so for a couple of those bolts on this guy, you might have to kind of, sorry, funky lighting in here, but you might have to kind of wiggle these guys around, wiggle this panel around, because it is kind of hard to fit this end here. You just got to kind of push it, grab your bolt, punch it through your nut, and you do have what may be a couple extra, but we might be using them up here, so try not to lose any of these. And then just wiggle that guy on there. On the top of these bolts is just, it's another 3mm Allen key, it looks like. Maybe it's a 4. Let me get my 2.5mm Allen for these guys. Okay, so I snugged up all those bolts. With one end I used a 2.5mm Allen, and on the other end, on the nut, it was a 9/32 inch ratchet. You want to take your little weather stripping pieces right here on the edge, the top edge of the heat shield. I'll show you a view from it when I get it on the car. Keep in mind there are actually different lengths for these guys. So there's one that's longer that goes on the back end. And there's one that's shorter that goes on the top, so there are different lengths. So I don't know if you can see, but basically you're going to take this box, slide in the front here, goes right in front of the battery, and there's this little rubber thing sticking up, and that sits right on top of that. And there's just a little bit of wiggle room, but that's okay. So now you should have one of these guys left, these little bolts that you're using for the heat shield. And that is actually going to go right onto this guy. So there's a little hole right here. That one end of this is going to attach to the bigger hole. And you got this little hole that's going to go on the heat shield. So get your bolt, slide it in the hole. You don't want to tighten this down all the way yet, just because it might need some adjusting. Okay, so there's another bolt that came in with those bolts to block the holes on your tube right here, on the piping. And that just slides right into here. Looks like that is a 8mm. The next step is going to be to, I'll get this out of the way. It's going to be to get this pipe to here, which you're going to use this coupler right here. Now when you put this on, you're going to hear a satisfying little popping noise. That means you've got it all the way on there. Alright, got it popped on. Of course, you want it probably to show the CTS turbo on there, don't you? Oh, and you're going to want to put the hose clamps on there first. Oops. Okay, something I discovered here with this hose clamp is they actually made a hose clamp that's a lot smaller than the rest of them, which was probably for the reducer down there. It should be fine. I don't think the reducer is going anywhere. We yanked on it and it's fine. But it barely fits over this housing, so just keep that in mind. I'll mention that for the beginning of the video so that people don't screw that up like I did. Alright, so I actually had to go and take this off and put the small hose clamp where it was supposed to be because it wasn't working. So now I'm putting this back in here. That's not going anywhere. Okay, so then there's a little piece on here. Down there, I don't know if you can see that. I'll only zoom in. Right here. This little slot right there that goes into this bolt right here. So loosen that up. Okay, now pretty much the last step here is just to get the filter on, and we should be pretty much done. So I'll do that. Okay, now we're just gonna slide this hose clamp over and tighten it down. Sure it stays on there. Okay, pretty much done. The last thing I was wondering what this was. This actually can go down in here, and then the heat shield sits on this little grommet. So I'll do that now. So I couldn't really wiggle this under there, but yeah, this goes down here, plugs onto that plastic, and then the heat shield sits on this grommet, but I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to put that last torque screw back in here so this heat shield's in place, and then we should be good. And now that you got your filter where you want it, which seems to be right there, don't forget to go ahead and snug up that little guy that connects to the filter housing. And you're done. One last thing you gotta do is put the MAF sensor back on. Alright, so one thing we did not do yet is connect this diverter valve back in. This diverter hose. It's going to prove a little bit difficult because there's a lot of shit back here kind of in the way. So I don't know how I'm going to totally do this. I might have to loosen this up and pull this up a little bit. Kind of annoying that they designed it like this. Other places, other intakes, it's just right there. Plug it right in there. So yeah, hopefully I can work my way around this, but definitely my biggest complaint with this intake so far is there's not a place for this hose, so figured it out. Alright, so what I did, I loosened the top part of this reducer, wiggled this guy around a little bit, push it back down, and I slid this underneath this hose right here that goes to the coolant. Hopefully that doesn't screw with the coolant at all. It looks fine, looks tight. And then I just got to get this hose clamp over so I can get the diverter hose connected. So, without screwing with the coolant line, lift it up. Actually, I'm going to do this inside, so set that out. You're going to take this guy, clamp it, grab onto it. It's going to be kind of a funky angle here. Yeah, I really wish they wouldn't have designed it like this. This is definitely not Golf R specific. This is definitely just FSI motor, like the Mark V GTI specific. Fuck. Yeah, you gotta be careful with this coolant line because not the best design, but whatever. Yeah. So tomorrow I'll have to go into the store and get a hose clamp for this. So that sucks, but what can you do? Alright, let's start her up, see if she sounds any different. Alright, so it's kind of hard to tell when we're just in neutral here, but I'm thinking once we get out on the road and do some driving, we'll really hear how much different this sounds, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, so I'll be doing a little driving test, see how it sounds, see how she acts. I gotta remember to get that hose clamp for this diverter hose, which is really too bad. They should have designed it better, but what can you do, you know? So yeah, and stay tuned for more stuff. We got a tune that's going to be happening this weekend, I think. Stage 1. Right now we're stock ECUs, so. And then stay tuned for, you know, some more modifications with suspension and wheel setup. I put coilovers in there in November, and I really want to get off these stock Talladega. So yeah, just stay tuned. Hopefully we should have more content coming out in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching.